This is your Thursday Fantasy PSA. Remember to take all your Thursday night players out of your flex spot. Thank you and have a nice week.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Rugby with Pads. Today we are doing our 2024-2025 season week 1 preview. It's come around so fast. It feels like the preseason is only just behind us and we're just getting into the real thing now. So without further ado, let's do this. Just some quick housekeeping. This is the kind of format that I will be doing moving forwards. I'll try and do a weekly show. This will be a bit longer because I'll do some introductions to the leagues and what we're doing there. But what I will aim to do is look at the waivers and the start sits in a way that makes sense to the leagues that I'm in. Now, a lot of you listening will be in the leagues that I'm in, so listen up. You might get some advice, but what I'll try and do is pick a couple of matchups each week from the leagues that I'm in and focus on those and the start sit decisions that are there and the waiver decisions that might be really good to make for this week, because it's week 1, and before week 1, we don't know anything, and that will be the title of this episode. Once again, we know nothing going into week 1. I'll do a all-up analysis and show you my matchups, because those are going to be the most interesting. And you know what? If you're listening and you're playing against me this week, you've got the best chance of winning if you listen into this show and try and catch me off guard. So without further ado, let's jump in. And we're going to jump in and we're going to look at the matchups this week. Now, first things first, I'm recording this on Monday. It will most likely come out on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on if there's any major news or anything like that. But whatever you do, get your Thursday night players out of your flex spots. They don't need to be there. Go back and listen to previous me, but there is so many reasons why you don't have flex players from Thursday night. It gives you so much more opportunity to change your team dynamics, and if something goes wrong on Thursday, you want as much flexibility going into Sunday and Monday and the week, the rest of the week's games, to sort you out. But we've got a cracker of a starter Friday morning for all of the UK listeners at 1:20 a.m. We've got Baltimore versus Kansas City. I think the starters are going to write themselves, except maybe the wide receiver crew from Kansas City. In Kansas, obviously you've got Mahomes, you're starting him. If you've picked up Kelsey, he will most likely be a heavy target. Looks like Marquise Hollywood Brown is out for the first week. Who's going to be the number 1 wide receiver? Is it going to be Rashee Rice? He's avoided punishment so far. Is it going to be Xavier Worthy? I think it's going to be a mixed bag between those, but you really want to be looking at Travis Kelsey, and if you drafted him high, you're going to start him. The rest is a bit of a misnomer so far. We don't know really what's going to go on there. As far as the running back position goes, it's Isaiah Pacheco's to do, but I would keep an eye on, is it Carson Steele, the fullback. I think he will see the field. Whether he will see active play, he might get some touchdown things. Great for a best ball, but we'll have to see how he goes there. In Baltimore, again, the team writes itself. It's going to be Lamar, it's going to be Derrick Henry, it's going to be Mark Andrews, it's going to be Zay Flowers. Who the second receiver is, I don't know. It could be Rashad Bateman, it could be Zay Flowers, it could be, I can't remember his name, but the guy they picked up this year, I'll insert it below. But the second receiver doesn't matter because it's a running team, and they're going to do that. They do have some questions at guard. Do I think it's going to go their way this time? It's questionable. Can Lamar get over the hump? He needs to do it in these games to be able to get over the hump and get into the playoffs with a good seed, but we shall see. Then starting on Saturday. Sorry, I just realised this is a Friday night game. So again, don't have any Friday night players in your flex unless you need to. We've got Green Bay in Philadelphia. This is the Brazil game. I remember this now. First time they're in Brazil. I think it's going to be fantastic. International series is great. Philadelphia is going to run through Saquon and Jalen Hurts. I don't think anyone else is going to be surprised at the fact that AJ Brown's the number 1 pick there. I do think Devontae Smith has a lot of value, especially if they take away the AJ Brownness rawness of it, but A.J. Brown is such a physical force. You want to play him. In Green Bay, it looks like Josh Jacobs is getting the bell cow role with everyone else injured. AJ Dillon on IR, don't think he was going to do much anyway. Shamefully, I traded for him last season. Traded away Najee, but best of bad worlds really. He's off all my rosters now, but Marshawn Lloyd, I believe, is a bit banged up. They've got rid of everyone else. It's a tough one, and out of the receivers, I wouldn't feel confident starting any of them. I think Romeo Dobbs is maybe the one I would pick out of all of them because he has the most consistency in targets. But outside of that, it's a 4-horse race. And I think it will depend on who's going to be it week in, week out. Jordan Love, I think, is going to be an okay starter against a Philadelphia defence that is a bit weak in the secondary. I think you've got James Bradbury converting to safety. You can play who you want there, but I don't think any one of them is going to do great apart from Jordan Love. I think that's going to be a really good opening game. Now, we've got a weird slate of games. I'm not interested in anyone in Pittsburgh, even though we've got George Pickens as the number one wide receiver with no competition. I'm not interested in Russ throwing anything to anyone. He couldn't make anyone a thing when he had actually okay receivers. Over in Denver, do I have any trust in him? I don't. Atlanta, wait to see if it's prime Kirk Cousins or whether it's late game Kirk Cousins. We'll have to see. Either way, he does elevate that offense. Drake London, Kyle Pitts. There's no surprise who you're going to play here. You're going to play the guys, and we're not talking about deep sleepers here. We don't know anything. We've got to go with draft capital and who we drafted during our fancy drafts. Arizona Buffalo is going to be an interesting one. I think that will be a massive shootout because Arizona don't have the players, but who is it going to be in charge of the receptions over in Buffalo? I mean, their wide receiver one for a lot of people is Dalton Kincaid at the tight end position. I still want to make Khalil Shakir a thing. I don't think MVS is going to get involved at all, really. Can James Cook be a number one back? They've obviously got a couple of guys behind him coming in. Could it be a bit of a backfield by committee? We'll have to see. Sorry, I need my cup of tea. It's been a long day already. Keon Coleman, I think, will have spice. It's going to be an unknown offense, but I think you're going to play the guys you're going to play. But in Arizona, I would be really high on not that if you've drafted someone else as well as Kyler. Why? But you're going to want to play Kyler. You're going to want to play Marvin Harrison. You're going to want to play Terry McBride. Those are the guys. Interesting to see that Michael Carter was waived because that just leaves the door open for James Conner to be the only back of interest. And I don't think he can carry that weight for the whole season. We'll see who emerges out there come week 2-3. Tennessee, Chicago. I think, again, going to be another shootout. Tennessee has a bad defense, but I don't think Chicago quite has the offense going up. From what I've seen during Hard Knocks, it hasn't really gotten there. I do like Rome Odunze. I think he will take over the position of number 2 wide receiver from Keenan Allen, so that's something to watch out for. It's DJ Moore, though. DJ Moore's the guy you want. Caleb Williams is going to throw it quite a bit because I think they will get a lot of pressure in his face. Whether that O-line holds up, that'll be interesting. DeAndre Swift I kind of like as well, but I'm not a particular fan of him. Tennessee have shored up their defensive front with signing Floyd. Is it Floyd? The linebacker from the Rams. I will remember his name. Sorry, it's been a long day, as I said already. So to get the names out there. But Tennessee is going to be interesting. I think the question is going to be who's going to be the number 1 wide receiver. All signs point to Calvin Ridley, but I don't think D-Hop is a bad option still. So we'll have to see how that plays out. The running game as well, it's going to be interesting to see who takes the majority of the catches. I think it's going to be a week-by-week thing. Sorry, majority of reps. It's going to be a week-by-week thing between Pollard and Tyjae Spears. I'll see who comes out on top there. I think it's going to be a middling game. I think this could be one of the more interesting ones for fantasy. Do I think anyone's going to break out? Maybe. I think that will be the interesting thing to see. New England have the hardest run of 7 games. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out 6-1. They are throwing Jacoby Brissett to the sacrificial lions. Cincinnati, not a bad defense. So I'm not taking any part of New England. I don't think I roster any New England players apart from Hunter Henry, who I think would be more interesting if Drake May was on the pitch. On the field, sorry, we're an American sport, not a British sport. Cincinnati, it'll be interesting to see if Burrow can hold up. He's Signs point to him being less mobile. Can they get Chase up and running? It's the usual option, but I don't know who it's going to be. I think the interesting one is who's going to be a third receiver. Is it going to be someone like Yoshivas or the rookie they signed, or is it going to be someone like Mike Gesicki? Can he finally, take back the mantle that he was a pass catching genius at when he was at Miami when they actually used him? Don't know, but I'll be interested to see who they also start at running back, because the Zach Moss, Chase Brown conversation, I always thought it was going to be Zach Moss. You look where the money is, but maybe they want to invest in that youth and that homegrown talent. I'll be interested to see where that goes. In Houston, you have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to wide receiver. CJ Stroud is going to feast, but I've avoided all of them because I think the share is too wide. The receiver I'd want in Houston is Dalton Schultz. I think he's going to do great. I think he's going to be a red zone target because you've got so many other people to guard. The tight end is going to go missing somewhere. Indianapolis, it's going to be really interesting to see if our man Richardson, who has become a fancy favourite despite only playing 4 games, he's one of my favourites. I've got him in too many places that I care to divulge, but it'd be really interesting to see how he does in his, hopefully, his first start in his second year. And I think Michael Pittman is going to be interesting for him. Whether Jonathan Taylor gets bitten into, I think Anthony Richardson being on the pitch bites into Jonathan Taylor no matter what you say. If you have a 700-800 yard runner at the quarterback, you are taking away those yards from the running back. I'm avoiding JT in this game in particular because Houston has never really had a fantastic run defense. They're okay in pass protection. We'll have to see how it goes, but I'm not really liking any wide receivers here, not because I don't think there's volume, but I don't think there's any volume for one person on either side. But that AFC South matchup is actually looking like one of my favourite ones of the week. Jacksonville at Miami. Be interesting to see if Travis Etienne really does break out. Trevor Lawrence gets back to his expected self. His previous Andrew Luck billing has not come to fore. So we'll have to see how that goes. And who is the number 1 receiver there? A lot of people have been liking Brian Johnson. Sorry, again, names. But their rookie wide receiver. I'm still hoping Gabe Davis becomes a thing, but we'll have to see. I'm not liking any of them. Do I think it's going to be a shootout? Yes, I do, because Miami's defense, middling. Jacksonville's offense, probably better than average on a good day. But Miami's offense, that's going to be good. If Tyreek's injured, you've got Jalen Waddle stepping up. If Jalen Waddle's injured, you've got Tyreek. It's one of those. It's going to be, each of them are going to have their games. It does make I think the conversation that's more interesting is, does Raheem Mostert start? Is it Devin A.K.A. get a slow start? Who it's going to be? I think eventually the wheels are going to fall off Raheem Mostert. He's 35, of course. Devin A.Chain is like 23. He's obviously got a lot of juice. We saw that last year. I want them both on my teams. We'll have to see what happens. Malik Washington is also interesting as well, so we'll have to see how that goes, as he's the nailed-on wide receiver 3 now, I think. Carolina, New Orleans, this NFC South matchup is gross. Deontay Johnson, that's all I can say. You've got Jonathan Brooks on the pup, Chuba Hubbard starting, Bryce Young is looking better, maybe a slightly boosted offensive line. They've got no push on the defensive line, which means I think Derek Carr is going to have a clean pocket to dump it off to Calvin Kamara as many times as he wants. I still don't believe Chris Lovey is a thing. Until I see it, he's not a thing on this channel. So he will, it's a Kamara game if ever I saw it. Minnesota, New York. I love the Vikings defense. Just going to leave that and drink my tea. The Vikings defense against Daniel Jones, who's going to throw a bucket load of dud passes. Do I think Sam Darnold's going to be any better? No. Do I think the New York defense can handle that? No. I don't think the New York defense is even up to Sam Darnold's standards, so take that as you will. I do think there's a depressed value for Justin Jefferson. I think Aaron Jones is going to be better than advertised, potentially, if he's got durability issues. Ty Chandler will be interesting. On the New York side of things, I don't see Malik Neighbours making the difference. They've lost too many weapons. I think they are going to be one of the worst teams in football, alongside the New England Patriots. Las Vegas versus Los Angeles. I just don't know how to call this game. Los Angeles are going to win it. The Chargers are going to win this. The Raiders are pitiful on offense. they've got a mediocre to bettering defence, and I think that Max Crosby can cause anyone issues. But they're going to run the Chargers, and to borrow a phrase from Evan Silver have established a run. They're going to run the piss out of the ball. They have so many running backs that they're going to use. I think the wide receivers who are going to get the opportunity are going to be the ones who are blocking. I think that's going to be the Jim Harbaugh way. You get opportunities if you block well. So it'll be interesting to see if Lad McConkey, who is a very slight young man, gets the opportunities. We think, or is he going to be used as a slot receiver in isolation? Either way, I think he's got value. Do I think people are sleeping on Justin Herbert? Yes, I do. I think he's got more mobility than we give him credit for a big old guy. He's 6'5" and a big chunky dude. I think he's going to be okay, and I think he's going to be efficient. That's all I can say about the Chargers. I think they're going to finally be efficient. Denver, Seattle, the Rust Bowl. This is a bad game. I like Bo Nix in this. But both teams who got rid of Russ when they can. I do like Bo Nix in this against the Seattle defense that is not that great, but they've got McDonald now in the charge. He is a defensive-minded coach. Can he coach them to be better? Yes, I do think so. I do like DK a lot, and I think Gino is going to find DK an awful lot. Tyler Lockett went basically undrafted. Everyone thinks it's going to be the second coming of Jackson and Jigba, even though he didn't come the first time. We'll have to see if that's the case. Cortland Sutton is your sneaky under-radar pick for this game. Dallas, Cleveland. Two teams I don't trust, apart from CD Lamb, who they're going to throw the ball a lot because they don't have any running backs, and they don't have an offensive line to protect the run, to block the run. I think that's going to be all of it for Dallas. They've gone about this weird. Jerry Jones is just odd, isn't he? And Myles Garrett is going to try and create havoc in the backfield. I'm not sure if we're going to see Deshaun Watson of old or Deshaun Watson of new, and Deshaun Watson of new being fragile and temperamental at best. I think Amari Cooper is a decent pickup. We'll have to see who the second receiver is. Is it an Njoku game? He didn't really like playing with the tight ends as much as Flacco did anyway, so we'll have to see what happens there. And their number 2 receiver, Jerry Jeudy, is he going to be a thing? He hasn't been yet, so we'll have to see. A game that I am excited for, though, is seeing the Washington Commanders against Tampa Bay. I'm unreasonably interested in this because I think Jaden Daniels is going to be a revelation there. Do I think it was ridiculous that they got rid of Jahan Dotson in the 11th hour? Yes, because they are talent poor. But they probably got rid of him for a reason. Maybe he was a disruptive locker room presence, I don't know. But the turmoil around that football club is still there. Whether Jaden Daniels has time to throw to Terry, who is maybe in the top 3 contested catch earners in the league, but I think with D-Hop and on a good day, and Devontae Adams being in that mix, I think it's going to be really interesting to see him really break out as hopefully a very good value wide receiver 1 this year. In Tampa, Baker's good. I think it's going to be okay. I don't know who's. Mike Evans is going to do what Mike Evans does. Do I think Rashad White can stay the course, or is Bucky Irving chomping at his heels a little bit? I think a bit of column A, a bit of column B. We've got Chris Godwin in the mix as well. I think he's going to be okay once more. He's going to be a solid fantasy contributor. I think he's been undersold all season, but I think that's going to finish off Sunday evening with a probably pretty decent game. I think it could be a Jaden Daniels win there, but I want all the offensive pieces because I think both these defenses are pretty rubbish. My Los Angeles Rams go to Detroit on Sunday night, or on Sunday Night Football. I don't think the Rams are going to come out with a win, but I think this is going to be a shootout. I love every part of the offense in here. Watch out for Jordan Whittington probably getting some spot plays. If Puka plays, that's great. If he doesn't, then Jordan Whittington and Demarcus Robinson will get more play. Cooper Kupp will be great, but as will Amon Russell Brown. I think Tim Patrick will have an impact in this game as well. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Kyron Williams. I think Blake Corum could also get an opening outing, and I think it'd be really interesting. A lot have been talked of Kyron Williams returning punts. They said the same about Cam Akers a few years ago, and he did great in the first 3 weeks, and then he was kind of readjusted. It's just what they go through. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But this is fantasy gold. I think it's going to be a great Monday Night Football event. And Sunday Night Football. And on Monday night, or Tuesday AM, for you Brits out there, we've got the marquee matchup of the week that I think is going to be dry. Aaron Rodgers obviously coming back from a heck of an injury, Achilles injury after 4 downs, like 38 seconds on the field. Crazy. Going up against the number 1 defense potentially, with Brendan Ayuk back under control, under contract. They probably won't have Trent Williams. Can they do it without him? I think the offensive line in San Francisco is Trent Williams plus others rather than better than the sum of their parts. I think it comes from a lot of individual talent rather than coaching. Whereas in New York, they've always had problems with the offensive line. So with 2 defensive lines who are going to be ball wreckers, I think this is going to be a very low scoring game. Brock Purdy has not shown well over preseason, but even though everyone's been saying he's been really great, I think this could be I'd love to see if this is a schemed game, because you've obviously got 2 guys from the same coaching tree as well, and when we see some weird and wonderful stuff from the likes of Breece Hall, Deebo Samuel, CMC if he's injured, he's going to be instant replaced with Jordan Mason, but I think that's going to lean into some jiggery pokery. You play your best players on this one. I don't know who it's going to be. We'll see how it goes, but I think this is going to be a low scoring game. I would favour either side's defence, even though you've got one very powerful offence going against one very weak offence potentially. Oh no, not weak. No, they're probably top 10, the Jets, I'd say. Anyway, that is your is kind of weekly roundup. We'll go through the list now, and let's have a look at who I think is going to be decent in my matchups. Welcome back, and we have matchup 1 available to you, and unfortunately, due to the wonders of the NFL doing all kinds of crazy things, and I'm going to quickly jump out and say that the NFL media team have been all over the place for the last couple of years. Good Morning Football moving from New York to LA and moving people out, and then having a different kind of programming schedule. We've missed out on that massively. It's not the same show anymore. Around the NFL more recently being axed and replaced by NFL Daily, which I do enjoy. I do enjoy NFL Daily. It's not nearly the same, but if you do like the kind of guys on there, Heed the Call, which is the new podcast under Underdog Fantasy, is really good. But they just don't get the rest of the media, despite being so connected to the NFL and having the best access anyone could ever have. Their fantasy app, which is, there are 30 million fantasy players out there. It's a captive market. You can make money on these guys, advertising through app sales. We are the fans. I have a podcast that very few people listen to because I'm so passionate about this game. But you can't get an app to work, and if you go onto the website now, you'll just get bad errors. So I can't even present it to you. So I'll put it on screen somewhere here and here, maybe. Even the app doesn't work properly. I've just got a black screen one, but I can kind of read out to what it did. It's the only league that I still play on the NFL Fantasy app. I used to play all of it. I've moved to Sleeper now, and this is not a propaganda thing. This is not even, I'm a sponsored post by Sleeper. I wish I was sponsored by Sleeper, and if you can cap this and send it to them, that'd be great. But Sleeper's got some great stuff on it now. I really like the new auto pick thing. I think it's great for people playing in different time zones to the US as well. Because there's sometimes that you're not going to be awake in the middle of the night. You're going to be waking up to seeing your number 1 wide receiver is injured, and there was a last minute call, and you're out of luck unless you've got a very good commissioner who will appreciate that. But my home league still drafts on the NFL Fantasy app, and I feel like I did pretty well. I did all right. It was a keeper league. I kept Kyron Williams. I then went heavy on wide receiver. I've got CeeDee Lamb that I picked up in the first round. Mike Evans, Sam Laporta, DK Metcalf. What other wide receivers have I got? Terry McLaurin, Calvin Ridley. I've gone for a lot of wide receiver one guys in their team, because I think that's the most consistent. That's what I'm going for this year. Running back to complement Kyren Williams, I've got Alvin Kamara. I've got Kyren Williams' backup, who I think is a fantastic handcuff and probably has some standalone value, Blake Corum, and I've got the pairing of Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford. Obviously put Nick Chubb in my slot. I've also got Devin Singletary as a backup as well, and at the quarterback position I've got Jaden Daniels and Aaron Rodgers. Kicker Carlos Santos, and I've got the Cowboys defense. Now, looking at the waiver wire for this team, it's too early to tell what's there. If I look at who's available in this league, I'm thinking, okay, well, could I improve on the secondary quarterback position? Yeah, I took Aaron Rodgers as a bit of a goer. I like the idea of Tyler Algier. I think he could have some standalone value. Rico Dowdle could become the number one. I've already talked about Ty Chandler. There are some interesting players popping up and still available on waivers in this one. J.K. Dobbins is an interesting one, who I think could potentially be the number one back over there in Chargers land. I've already mentioned that Tyler Lockett goes completely undrafted. If you are stuck for a wide receiver, Tyler Lockett, Josh Palmer, Cortland Sutton, Gabe Davis, all available in a lot of leagues as well. And I've already mentioned DeMarcus Robinson, I think is an interesting pickup and would be for this team if I had the wide receiver problem, which I don't. Tight end is a bit thin, but again, you can get some really good value. I think Colby Parkinson is going to be an interesting one if you're in need of it. Cade Otton could be a good pickup as well. And again, all of these players, if I didn't have a good lineup that I've already set, are players that I would be interested in. And I think I did pick up Devin Singletary or a kicker on waivers. I can't remember. But either way, if I look at my matchup, the team writes itself. I think it is going to be Jaden Daniels going up against Kyler Murray. Alvin Kamara going against Jonathan Taylor. Again, I don't like the Jonathan Taylor pick. Kyren Williams against Isaiah Pacheco. Devontae Adams, who I think is going to struggle this year, being thrown the ball by Gardner Minshew. We'll have to see how that goes. Against Mike Evans. My CD Lamb against Jamar Chase. This feels like a really even matchup. Sam Laporta, Mark Andrews, Metcalf, Ayuk. I think I'd probably do edge it just from volume perspective. Alex has got Tucker, of course, the number one kicker in the nation. I've got Carlos Santos, who I just think is going to be on the... I think Chicago, at this early stage, Caleb is going to be manufactured a touchdown. He needs it. But I think they're going to get into scoring positions and not quite be able to convert, because I think that red zone nous about you, it really comes with age and experience. So I think Carlos Santos is an interesting pick for that. And I've got the Cowboys defense. Could I improve anything? I might well start Jerome Ford against Dallas, because I think their defensive line maybe allows you to run on them a little bit. Terry McLaurin I think might be an interesting start, but who do I pick to get rid of? Mike Evans, CeeDee Lamb, or DK Metcalf? I'm spoiled for riches in this team, and I'm really excited, looking forward to it. So I think that I'm really hoping that's going to be a win. But you know what, I say that, and I did terribly last year. I came second to last, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, with that said, let's take a look at the rest of the teams that I'm dealing with as well. We've taken a look at what's on the kind of waivers when it comes to redraft, but what about Dynasty? Now, again, it just so happens that I'm playing Alex in our main Dynasty League as well. This is kismet. This was meant to be, I guess. And some of these players that I've talked about are really interesting. I've got Lamar Jackson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Devin A. Chain, Puka Nacua, who I'm a bit worried about this week, DJ Moore, Pittman, Andrews, who I traded for recently. I'm all in on Andrews this year. Deebo Samuel, Chris Godwin, Justin Herbert, and on the bench, Aaron Rodgers, Gus Edwards, Ladd McConkey, Mike Williams, Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakir, Treylon Burks. Oof, gross. Why did I trade for him? I traded fourth for him, so I think so. Quentin Johnson, Noah Fant, Isaiah Likely, and Tucker Kraft. Now, again, I think based on a week one, you have to take the players that you know are going to start. I would question whether Puka Nacua is going to get the ball, and in replacement of him, I may be looking at those start-sit decisions around Khalil Shakir, whether I elevate Godwin and look towards Gus Bus or Lab McConkey to come in, I'm not quite sure. But the team at this point should set itself, and you need to go with the guys you set out to go for. In my opposition, and I'm going to do this for more my oppositions as well, I'm looking at Alex's lineups, and I'm thinking it's all right. If I look at it, Caleb Williams, Barkley, Javonte Williams, I think he could be okay. Whether he's going to be the bell cow or not, I've already talked up Rome Odunze, and I do like that pairing with Williams and Odunze. I think that is going to be really good. But she has doubled up on the Bears lineup here, and I would take out DeAndre Swift if I was her, which I'm not, so I don't have to. But if I was recommending Alex anything, I'd maybe take DeAndre Swift or Rome Odunze out and look at replacing them with. It's not an embarrassment of riches on the bench here, but Cortland Sutton maybe, if you've got the belief in Brian Thomas that he's there as well. But it's very much a lineup that sets itself, unfortunately, because the riches aren't there. Alex has a lot of good picks later on, and I think she's got some really interesting players who I think are going to perform a role. But do I like the mix of the teams? Maybe not. I may be even looking to trade away someone like Rome Odunze to get maybe a couple of older veterans who might be able to do that. So, Alex, if you're listening, the door is always open. Next, we'll move on to, I don't know which league I was trying to do. Okay, we'll move on to Redraft League. And I am playing someone different. I'm not playing Alex in all the leagues as well. I am playing Harry. So, Harry, listen up. I think I'm actually playing you in 2 leagues. So this is going to get repetitive quickly. This is our 16-man, yes, you heard me, 16-man beginner league, quote unquote. This league started 2 years ago. It was an 8-person league. Last year it was a 12 or 14-person league, and we've got more people coming in. Some new, some who only started a couple of years ago, some veterans. It's a really good mix. I won it the first year. Jack won it last year and named this league. So naming rights go with this league. So as you've seen, the Hock Tour Tagovailoa, that's a terrible pronunciation of that, Invitational is going to age really well, but it seems like the Hock Tour girl is still all over your socials, so it doesn't really matter. My team is looking pretty good. I've got Kyler Murray, Breece Hall, who I picked up in the first, Mike Evans, Sam Laporta. I went early on tight end, I remember this now. Terry McLaurin, who I really like, and this has got 4 flex slots. So Terry McLaurin was my first flex. Because it's a 16-man league, we decided to go for a lot of flex, give you flexibility, so you could, if you want to, fill up your team with tight ends. What one guy's option was to try and take all the best quarterbacks. Might have backfired a little bit, but we'll see how the trading goes as well. I've got Lab McConkey, D-Hop, Khalil Shakir, Matt Gay, and the Minnesota defense here. Again, I'm all over the Minnesota defense. I think that is a great start. If you have Minnesota defense or you are stuck for a defense, start them. You want to pick on Daniel Jones as much as you can. Matt Gay, I think for the same reason I had Cairo Santos in the last one, I think that maybe they might just stall a little bit in being able to get over the line. And Shane Steichen is nothing but pragmatic when it comes to his play calling. So I really enjoy that. Because this is a 16-man league, there's very little on the bench. I've gone for some gross players, not going to lie. Braylon Allen, Bucky Irving, Tyler Algier. I've gone for backups. Gabe Davis, because I still want to make him a thing, and Luke Musgrave as a bit of protection to my investment in Sam Laporta. But that's about it. On the other side, I'm going up against Harry, who went early with Patrick Mahomes, Alvin Kamara, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Evan Engram, and in his flex is looking nice. Cooper Kupp and Rome Odunze, less good on the Brian Robinson. I might be, temper expectation on him. Brian Thomas, I like that. Jason Sanders, and a Baltimore defense who I would not be starting, because I think Kansas City are going to want to start their three-peat with a bang. Now, he doesn't have many options on the bench here, so let's look to this. But, the person that I would be mindful of is Brian Robinson. I still think they're going to pay a little bit more Eckler early on, just to see what's available to them. If we look at the free agent market here at running back, it doesn't make for good reading. In large leagues, you're going to have sacrificed a player, so there is not much available here on the waivers. Khalil Herbert, not really going to do anything for me. Damian Pierce is maybe going to be the number 3 back there in Houston. Like Cam Akers better, and not much else really. I still don't know what's going to happen with their running back in Vegas, whether Madison is going to be a thing or not. But at the moment, people are saying, is it Lobe? I don't know. Equally in the wide receiver market, it is grim reading. So again, these teams kind of write themselves. If I was to look at anyone a bit funky and go for this as well, again, I would be looking at Jordan Whittington, depending on whether. I think he might have already been picked up, actually, so he's not even available in this league, so this is a deep league. I might be looking at Colby Parkinson. I think he could be really interesting if you want to play a tight end instead of that running back, but that's where I'm going. The start sits, I think, for this team, they really write themselves. You love to start people like Breece Hall and things like that, but their names at the start of the season, these guys can fall out of favour pretty fast. Elsewhere, we have our franchise mode. Now, franchise mode has become such a big thing for me. I really like it. It's basically Dynasty with a humongous roster, including IDP, so I won't go into all the names here. And it's a massive experiment because we're also doing salary caps. You'll see on the right of the screen if you're watching on YouTube, we did salary caps for everyone. So people have contracts over multiple years. It's like a keeper league with contract elements. I will probably do a deep dive into this at some point to see if it's actually working. But we've tried to balance it so IDP players, so that's individual defensive players, have an impact on the team as well. So you could have decided to go early on IDP and later on other positions. We do have a kicker. We don't have full defenses, and it's going to be a single QB league with a load of flexy stuff, which is great because what wanted to try and create as close to an 11 on 11 matchup for your game day roster as possible. I don't really have a huge amount of start-sit decisions when it comes to my offensive skill players. There's some guys on the bench who I think could be interesting. Greg Dortch, Cortland Sutton. Is there anyone else here that I find really interesting? Because we've got a very, very deep bench here. Probably not, and I'm quite thin on those players, but I've got some stalwart players. I've got Pittman, Cup, Laporta, Schultz, McLaurin, Godwin. You can see the kind of players I really want to pick up. I am, however, this has reminded me, I have got to not play Hollywood Brown because he doesn't look like he's going to be available for the first one. So I'm very glad I went through this exercise now. And instead of him, I'm going to play someone like Greg Dortch. I think both defenses are going to be porous at best. So it's either him or Cortland Sutton. You know what? Based upon the fact he's going up against the Seattle defense, I'm going to go Cortland Sutton just because I think he feels a bit safer for week one, and I can probably regret that decision later on. Elsewhere in the defense, I've gone for some heavy hitters. I've gone for lots of linebackers and people like that. So I've got Fred Warner, Daniil Hunter, Alex Highsmith, Cam Curl, who I think could be really interesting. I don't know how IDP is going to set itself out this year. Because I've never played it before, but really interested to see how it goes. This is a 2 tight end league as well, so it's worth mentioning there. So Sam Laporta and Dalton Schultz is amongst the kind of higher end guys here. Harry, again, playing him in 2 different leagues. He has got a team consisting of Trevor Lawrence, Josh Jacobs, Garrett Wilson, Stephon Diggs, who's got some good names there. His rest of his flex is pretty good. He's got to get Elijah Mitchell out of there as well. So if you have Elijah Mitchell, he is on injured reserve for the year. So get him out of your teams as fast as you can. He's got some instant replacements here. Ezekiel Elliott, I think, is going to be good enough to get you over a couple of weeks, but he's got a bit of a dead roster here when it comes to some players who are either on IR, who can be moved about, and or generally aren't going to be available for their teams for one reason or another. So Harry, you need to sort it out, mate. You need to sort that out quickly. I do think his IDP players are pretty good. He's got Sauce Gardner. It's not a league that favours cornerbacks more than any other DBs, but I think if anyone's going to do it, Sauce Gardner's going to do it. I do like the idea of Trey Hendrickson wrecking stuff as the number one pass rusher for the Bengals. I think he's going to be better than advertised. I think Matthew Judon is going to be better than advertised as well. Even though he's old, I still think he's very wily. And Patrick Surtain, I think, is going to be a fantastic player as well in that DB spot. So, I've not got many complaints about Harry's team other than he needs to get it together when it comes to the actual roster makeup. And the final team that I'm in on Sleeper is Scott Fishbowl, and I won't go into detail about this, but this was a great event, and I've got a really good league that I'm playing in. I'm playing in the Harry Potter division in the UK side of it. For those of you who don't know, Scott Fishbowl is a massive tournament with loads of personalities in the world of show business, in the world of fantasy football, in the world of football in general as well. You've got some players in there as well, content creators, general hobbyists and fans alike all come together. It's a bit of a ballot. It's always really interesting at the start of the summer when people start getting their invites. And I actually went to the live event, which was so fantastic. So thanks very much for having me down for that. It was absolutely amazing. It was the first live draft I'd done in terms of putting things on a board, using your notes as well. Everyone had their notebook out, and you could tell that everyone was really on their game. And if you look at the league and you look at the percentage kind of projections here, you can tell this is going to be a tough league. There are a couple of people who, probably by no fault of their own, if I look at this team, it's probably because he's got someone who's injured. Yeah, exactly. Michael Badgie not got a team at the moment. So, but when I looked last time, everyone was like 52-48 projected. I think one of my team at one point was probably the most favoured here, but this is going to be a tight game. And you played one game against the median, I believe, as well in this tournament. So it's going to be really interesting, and I think you're going to see the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But I went through I sacrificed tight end, not going to lie. And if I was looking at anything, it's something that I wouldn't do next time. Isaiah Likely was one of my first picks, but I do have Hunter Henry here, Tyler Conklin, Greg Dulcich on the bench as well. I'm probably favouring Hunter Henry. I don't know why. He just called out to me. I don't believe the Tyler Conklin hype train here. Do I like Isaiah Likely? I don't think he's going to get the volume in the passing game there, so he is going to come out of my team there. And I am going to put in probably Hunter Henry to start as a game day decision. We'll have to see how that goes. If not, pivot to Tyler Conklin. I don't believe Greg Dulcich is a Sean Payton guy. This is tight end premium, so they score a bit more, but you can see it on other people's rosters. They'll be scoring way more heavily on tight end than I am, but because I went very heavily on running back and wide receiver. Early doors, I went Jalen Hurts. He was my first pick. It's a super flex league. You can see there I've got Will Levis and a couple of other bums on on seats elsewhere. Kyron Williams was the pickup early, though. I did get Blake Corum as his backup as well, because I think in this kind of league, when it's this deep, 12 man, you've got to protect yourself. But then I think I went for 6 wide receivers in a row. I went Debo early. I went Travis Etienne early. That's it. I went Debo. Devontae Smith just made sense for the stack for me. If you've got a stack, make sure you exploit it, but don't try and double stack, which means you're kind of having 2 players because they can't throw one ball to 2 different players. I also matched the Will Levis stack with Calvin Ridley. I'm not in love with Jake Moody. I just don't think that's going to be a high-scoring game, and I might go for Josh Carty, even though he did miss a PAT in the preseason. But I think that's going to be more of a shootout. You know what? I'm going to make that decision now. I picked him up. Yes, I've rostered 2 kickers. Yes, I'm that guy. I don't care. I think in this league, because it's points per first down, I don't like the looks of Ezekiel Elliott and some of these guys here. I do potentially like Keenan Allen a little bit, especially early on in the season, but I think he could get ridden out of town pretty quickly. But I'm feeling pretty confident in this one. But this is an interesting league because I don't feel compelled to play a quarterback in the second position. I think Will Levis is going to have a decent game against Chicago. I think they're a decent enough defence that he'll be challenged. And would I consider playing someone above him? Yes, I would. But that's really, really interesting. You see some of these team makeups, and some of them don't have a second quarterback at all. I am going up against Patrick Mahomes, Taylor Adams. Just some of the names at the top of the list are really good, but then it does fall off a little bit. Cooks Brian Robinson, Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz, I think, is a fantastic tight end. I think this guy went, early on tight end with Kincaid. I didn't. I think I was the last person to draft a tight end actually because I was so determined that I wanted that to stand out. But yeah, it looks like my opposition, and it needs to set a couple of lineups here because he's got a couple of guys on IR and what have you. But we've got a couple of days for that, so we'll see how it goes. And as a little bit of bonus, I did do one last draft. I've got to. I can't even get into that because the team didn't do that. But I'll read it out to you guys. I ended up doing a re-go around of a league I did last year. It was with a bunch of guys that were all on Instagram. They're all UK. I guess content creators, yeah, and it's on the ESPN platform, so I can't show you as easily. But this one was a really difficult one, and I'm going to have to kind of look at it again. I've got Lamar Jackson, Joe Mixon, Jerome Ford, which I really like as a pick for week 1. I think I missed out on getting Nick Chubb. Yeah, someone else picked him up, so I don't have that. I have got CeeDee Lamb, who was my number 1 pick. Mike Evans, Trey McBride, Trey McLaurin. You see, I've gone for a lot of the same guys again, so I'm either going to be very let down or very happy with everything. Raheem Mostert, I think, is a really good pickup. Raheem Mostert, I think, is going to be a really good pickup week 1. Bear in mind, week 1 only. Because, no, not week 1 only, maybe the earliest part of the season. I think he is going to wear out eventually, but he is a start for me, especially against Jacksonville. I think they're going to run the ball, especially with Jalen Waddle kind of in and out of the lineup a little bit. So I think I've got a pretty neat team there. I'm not going to make any changes to that team now. Maybe bring Shakir in, depending on what happens and if we see any kind of reports there. But it's going to be an interesting season, I think. I think this season is maybe going to signal a little bit of changing of the guard, especially amongst some of the more established backfields. I think the running back by committee is going to be really interesting. You still have standout teams like Baltimore, who are going to run the ball through one guy, but conversely, you've got the Chargers, who I'm pretty much avoiding. I'm sitting all of their running backs, just because I really don't like them. But if I had to kind of pick 3, because they're going to share so much as well as the wide receiver by committee, I'm avoiding Houston. I'm avoiding I've avoided Cincinnati in the most part as well, and I've avoided bad quote unquote. It's still in the top 32 in the entire world, but bad quarterbacks as well, because it's just too difficult to tell, and especially in places like Green Bay, where you're not going to tell you've got a good quarterback, but you've got an equally interesting set of wide receivers that you've got to play against as well. If I was to pick 3 sits for this week, I would sit collectively the wide receiver group at Green Bay. I don't think any of them are going to stand out, but if it is, it's going to be a complete crapshoot. If any of you can tell me in the comments who it's going to be with any degree of certainty, I'm on it, guys. Yeah, I'm on it. I'm equally going to sit all the skill positions. I'm going big here at Pittsburgh. I just don't like any of them. The only one that stands out to me is Pickens, but he's going to get picked off. Atlanta's defense is pretty good, and Atlanta have a really easy schedule, so I really do like Atlanta. I might come back to that in a second. And the other set of guys, I'm going to go with a set of guys that I'm going to sit. Who's going to be? I think Devontae Adams is still going to be interesting because of volume alone. I am going to sit. Oh, it's really, really tough, this, guys. I'm going to sit the San Francisco. No, I'm not going. You can't sit Debo. He's going to be good no matter what. Can I go for a low-hanging fruit one? I could go for anyone in New York. No, I'm going to go for Chris Olave. Yeah, I'm picking out Chris Olave as a single player because he goes in the 3rd round, and I just don't see it. And until he can prove to me, he's sitting on the sit bench for the time being. But let's end with some positives. Who are going to be my kind of 3 starts that I'm going to be looking at this week? If you've got them and you've got to make that decision. The start I've always talked about, and in week 1 we do know nothing except Daniel Jones is still rubbish. The Minnesota Vikings, I think, could have a really, 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 really good defensive week. because they're going to be on the field quite a bit, I think, because Sam Darnold is going to get them off quite a bit, I think that gives more opportunities for Daniel Jones to throw multiple picks and get sacked multiple times and fumble it multiple times. I would put a bet out now that he's going to have at least one sack, no, more than one sack, at least 3 sacks, 1 fumble, and at least 1 interception, possibly for a pick 6. I'll quote ourselves back on that when we look back at this next week. Who else is going to be in my starts? I think I'm not going to do the obvious ones. Of course, I'm going to say CeeDee Lamb. Of course, I'm going to say these guys. But I think Terry McLaurin is going to be one of my starters, and by that as well, I mean Jaden Daniels. I think that combination is going to be really, really interesting against a Tampa defense that I don't think is fantastic. And there's so much anticipation going into week 1. You want a guy who can really bring it in and bring it down. And like I said, he's one of the best contested catch guys in the game. And Jaden Daniels can sling it. I think we're going to see a really good spike performance. I think it's going to be more useful in non-PPR than PPR. But Terry McLaurin is going to be my second start of the week. And I'm going to say Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, again, you're probably starting him. He's in the top 4 rounds. But Cooper Kupp, I think, is going to have an absolute field day against Detroit because everyone's looking at Puka. Everyone's looking at Kyron Williams. Cooper Kupp can do his thing. I think it's going to be really interesting. If Puka starts, Cooper is a wide receiver 1 on the week, and I will stake my name on that. But that is your lot, guys. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a bit of an odd week because, as I've said before, we don't know anything yet. So, because we don't know anything, we're massively speculating, and I hope you didn't mind the trawl through my teams because I want to do this every week. So next week I will target a team in 3 of the 3 redraft leagues that I'm in: my home league, which is the Keeper League, the Hawk Tour League, and you know what, the other league will be one of the 2 Dynasty Leagues that we will dig into, and we will take a matchup that I am not in. I will revisit one of my matchups later on down the season. I'll make sure everyone gets coverage in the leagues at some point or another, and analyse their teams, look at the waiver options for them, and look at the start-sit decisions that we've got to make, and make the decisions on the top 3 and the bottom 3 players or groups of players there. So that's going to be the new format, guys. You're going to get me once a week, and occasionally I'll pop up with more of an essay type thing or something I want to get off my chest. But this is going to be the informational side of things. I've hopefully earned your interest with some of the off-season stuff. Not that it was hugely consistent, apologies for that, but we will stay consistent throughout the season. If you're interested in supporting, you can support through all the usual channels, rugbywithpads.com. You can find us on all the socials at rugbywithpads. Please drop a like, follow, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. And I'm extending because I didn't get my act together, we do have new merch coming. I'm extending the offer of I think I said 10%. I'm going to extend it to 15%. 15% off all merch throughout the September if you put in the code in the description. I'll call it like Sept Season or something like that. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. SEPTSZN into Rugby with Pads. You get 10% off, 15% off merch. If you're already a member, that stacks with your 10% membership, so you get loads off as well. Membership is the best way to support us. We're trying to get to a small number so we can produce some belts for the leagues that we're in as well. It's silly stuff like this. It's just to make it more enjoyable and to put the game physically in someone's hands. I've got an idea of how we're going to do that, and I might do a video on that coming up soon. But thank you so much for listening. If you've gone this far, I really do appreciate it. You guys are true heroes, and I will see you very soon on the virtual gridiron.